So what do you do when you're faced with a choice that feels, well, impossible? You know, the kind that just freezes you in your tracks. We're going to dive into that exact moment today through an ancient epic story that has a surprising amount to teach us about our own lives, right here, right now.
I mean, we've all been there, right? Where your heart is pulling you in one direction, but your head, or maybe your sense of duty, is pulling you in a completely different one. And it feels like no matter what you choose, it's the wrong path. It's a deeply, deeply human feeling, and it's the exact place our story kicks off. So let's set the scene. Our story begins with this impossible choice, a warrior's dilemma. We're on the legendary battlefield of Kurukshetra from the ancient Indian text, the Bhagavad Gita. A massive civil war that's been brewing for generations is literally moments from erupting. Just try to picture it. The air is so thick with tension, you could cut it with a knife. On one side, you have the Pandavas, who are fighting for what's rightfully theirs. And on the other side, the Kauravas, who are actually their cousins and have stolen their kingdom. The stakes just could not be any higher. And right in the middle of all of this is Arjuna, the greatest warrior of his generation. He asks his charioteer, who happens to be the divine Krishna, to drive him to the center of the battlefield. He wants to see who he's really up against. And as he looks across the field at the opposing army, man, his heart just plummets. Because he doesn't see enemies. He sees his own family, his cousins, his revered teachers, the friends he literally grew up with. And those are his words. You can just feel the agony in them. He's wrestling with this massive moral crisis. I mean, what's the point of winning a kingdom if it means you have to kill everyone you love to get it? The victory itself would feel like ash in his mouth. It would be a kind of spiritual death. And this, right here, is where Arjuna's ancient problem becomes so incredibly real for us. His main conflict is between his dharma, his sacred duty as a warrior, and his personal love for the very people he has to fight. We face that same kind of war inside ourselves all the time, don't we? When our career clashes with our passion, or when our family's expectations just don't line up with our own dreams. These are our battlefields. So, faced with this totally impossible choice, what happens to Arjuna? Well, his internal conflict, it becomes an external reality. He completely and utterly breaks down. And get this, the text actually has a name for this moment, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which translates to the yoga of Arjuna's despair. Now think about that for a second. His despair isn't just treated as an emotion. The text elevates it to a profound state of being, a yoga. It's the moment when his compassion and his sorrow become so overwhelming that he literally cannot act. And this moment just perfectly illustrates his state. The greatest warrior on the planet, a man literally born for this, just drops his weapon. He slumps down in his chariot, completely defeated, not by an enemy arrow, but by his own heart and mind. He is just paralyzed. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn and where the wisdom really starts to shine through. Arjuna isn't shamed for his crisis. In fact, his confusion is presented as a totally natural, even necessary part of the human journey. The lesson is crystal clear. The goal isn't to run away from these paralyzing moments, but to actually face them and seek a deeper understanding from within them. And that leads us to this really powerful way of reframing the whole situation. We're so often taught to see a breakdown as a failure, right? As a sign of weakness. But what if it's the exact opposite? What if a breakdown can actually be a breakthrough? This one idea just changes everything. Arjuna's collapse isn't a sign that he's weak. It's a sign that he's sensitive, that he's human, and that he's on the very edge of a profound spiritual awakening. It's the moment he stops pretending he knows all the answers, and he finally starts asking the right questions. So this breakdown teaches us 3 really practical lessons. First, it's okay to pause. Arjuna dropping his bow is such a powerful symbol. It's the courage to just say, you know what, I don't know how to move forward, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. Second, question your duty. By questioning his role as a warrior, he isn't being a coward. No, he's starting the journey toward a real understanding of his purpose. And third, and this is so important, ask for help. The guidance from Krishna only arrives after Arjuna admits he's totally lost. It's in that moment of surrender that he's finally open to receiving wisdom. So, how do we take this ancient story and actually apply it to our own lives, to our own internal battlefields? Well, the key is realizing that the battlefield is a metaphor.
The war isn't really between two armies of soldiers. It's the war that happens inside all of us. It's that conflict between our fears and our courage, between our responsibilities and our deepest desires, between our confusion and our search for clarity.
This story is for anyone who has ever felt completely stuck, for anyone who's reached a point where the path forward is just a total blur and life feels, well, just too heavy to carry. What it teaches us is that this moment of crisis isn't the end. It's the necessary starting point for finding real, lasting wisdom. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you face one of life's impossible choices and you feel that paralysis start to creep in, are you going to see it as a failure, as something to run from, or will you see it as an invitation? An invitation to drop the bow, to sit with the confusion, and to open yourself up to a deeper wisdom.